our world, the world today, I'm asking myself, what would make a young person's world explode? And for me, the first thing that came to mind was family. Family has gotten so messed up. I like that we're asking about corruption. It's one of the institutions that has completely gotten corrupted. So family is one of the sources of our headache, of our explosion. But what happens when we get stressed, when we see things going on in our life? We have issues like addictions, depression, anger. Those are things that come about. And those, for me, are just symptoms of what's actually going on in the world. So what's going on in the world? Parents. I will not ask anybody to put your hands up, but parents have caused a lot of stress and pain in young people's world today. And parents have a habit. I'm a parent, by the way, so guilty as charged. But parents have a habit of thinking that life is about them, and therefore directing a young person's world, a young person's life, a young person's decision based on their own standards. And that is one of the things I've identified as a source of stress. But we need them for whatever reason. They're breaking up with each other. They're fighting with each other. They're loving each other. They're showing us good examples, bad examples. But we need to acknowledge the stress they're also causing, as and when they're causing the stress. Okay? Because the world expects us to behave a certain way, to react a certain way to our parents. And that forces us to contain ourselves in a way that if you don't manage well, will cause the explosion. So these things like anger, escapism, trying to cope negatively will come from that relationship, key relationship. And we look at what to do with it. The other thing is siblings. Whether you have them, whether you don't have them. Whether you like them or you don't like them. The ideal world is where siblings just get along together. But again, we don't live in an ideal world, do we? How many firstborns are in the room? We need a special self-help kind of committee somewhere over there. Because we are the pseudo-parents. You're born and then you're minding your business, you're enjoying life, you're getting along very well, and then alas, your parents decide to bring somebody else. That can cause stress, right? And then these other kids, second-borns, third-borns, middle children, you come and you get into a space and either you're favored or compared or, told to be an example, told be like so-and-so, or you get to a place like second-borns in the room. I'm not attacking anybody, but second-borns end up showing off, especially when they end up just being the only two. I have a second-born. I have my children. I have a first-born, second-born. The second-born used to change. You see like how you can have lights that are directional? When she got trophies, she would look for a way of climbing up to where the light is to direct them to her trophies. And then come and tell the brother, Ebu, come and see. Have you noticed anything different? Show off. And why do they show off? Because they come into a world that they were not the first child. And then second-borns suffer. Second-borns and, father children, especially if you're the same gender, hand-me-downs. You don't get anything new. So you really need to fight, especially when you're same gender. Otherwise, you need to assert your presence. And that brings issues within siblings. Now, with the breakup of family, because you remember this is about family, we're having siblings who are not from the same parents. And that may not necessarily be the case to you, but I know at any one time, we're going to have siblings within families who have different parents because we are blending our families a lot more today. And that will still bring chaos. You are happily existing as a firstborn or secondborn, and then suddenly you're a fifthborn. Right? Just because your parents have decided to blend a family. Those are things that we need to acknowledge are causing stress. The other thing is family history. What do people say about your family, where you're from? What are those things that you're carrying that you don't even know that you're carrying with you? Those are things that we must acknowledge when we are talking about this is the exploding world. Then we have friends. So that's a family category. We have friends. Friends are another ball game altogether. There's rejection. that comes from having friends. They don't like the way you look, they don't like the way you talk, they don't like the way you dress, and they think they're all that, right? And then you end up also being that kind of friend. You don't like how others look, you don't like how they talk, you don't like how they speak, you don't like how they dress, and you end up being the bully. So friends reject each other. We get rejected by friends. I'm just listing them so that, when we talk about mental health and everything else, where is the source coming from? Where is the source of ill health or that just being unwell coming from? So friends do that. Friends give us places to compare. We compare how we are performing in school. We compare how we are performing at home. We compare how we are performing with girlfriends, how we are performing with boyfriends, how we are performing with our other people, our preferred partners. Whatever that might be, friends are bringing a lot of stress into our lives. Again, let's acknowledge them. During the prayer today, we're praying about loss of friends. Young people are dying in great numbers today. By the time I was finishing high school, I hadn't lost too many friends. But by the time my son was finishing high school, he had lost more friends than I had lost in the lifetime from my high school to when I gave birth to him. And what's causing young people to die? There's a lot of accidental death that's happening. And accidental death is, for instance, when you're riding in a car and somebody's higher, you have an accident, friend dies. Accidental death is coming from overdosing. Accidental death is coming from coping negatively with some things, and then you end up finding yourself in a situation that, death has happened. Attempted suicides, and then suicide that actually, they call it succeeding, that has gone through. You have managed to lose a friend through suicide. That's how we are losing friends. We are losing friends through travel. Parents relocating, families relocating, and then suddenly you don't have friends. We are losing friends through what? Schools changing. Many of us, no raising hands, no pointing fingers, but I know a few of us have had this experience. Your parents work hard, they love you, and they decide, we are moving from one estate to another. What happens? School has to change. Life has to change. And then they move when you're about, like 10, 11? And then when you're 14, 15, they're asking what happened. You denied me, my friends. You made me lose my friends. So what do you mean what happened? But those are still things that we need to acknowledge as you're walking this journey. Then there's a future. What are you thinking about your future? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do when you grow up? Where do you want to be? One of the things I'm hearing a lot from young people is, I don't want kids, I don't want family, I'll be okay moving as far away from home as possible. A dog or a cat is fine. That's your future. But what is driving that desire? What are you running away from? All those are things that end up contributing to the mental stress we go through as young people. There's success. What does success look like? I had a kid saying that he wants to take over his father's business when the father retires. First question for me was, does your dad know? Because you could be sitting there thinking you're going to inherit from your dad, and then, oops, you discover you can't. So number one, does your dad know? Secondly, what are you doing on that journey towards success? And when we're talking about mental health and what to do about it, part of the ways of coping is understanding how you're going to walk towards that success, towards that career growth, towards that life that you actually want. And that's what we'll be looking at. So if those are the sources of stress, how do we then end up coping unhealthily? I've mentioned some of them as we were going through those examples. When it comes to family, we are looking for ways to escape. We end up fighting, we end up arguing, lock yourself in your room, so you end up not having dinner and meals together, and yet family is important. During COVID, I don't know how old you guys were during COVID, but there's some families that were so messed up. There's a kid who didn't know that her family used to have dinner together because she was always in her room. And then they just said, you know what, she's just being a moody teenager. And they continued his life without her. And so isolation, withdrawing, becomes one of the ways of coping. And when you withdraw, you end up in a very sad space. You end up alone. And yes, it may feel like you're connecting with the people that you're connecting on your phone, across whatever social media platform you may be using, but you end up being alone. We need human contact, regardless of who you actually are, right? The other thing that's happening is we are not developing the muscle. The more we are only looking at the stress, we are not developing the muscle to do hard things. One of the, there's this university in Kigali called ALU, African Leadership University. They have a motto or slogan that they say, they call do hard things. Do hard things. You need to do hard things. There's a guy called Jim Quick. He's a brain coach. And he says that when you do hard things, life becomes easier. So stress won't go away. It's how we manage it that will help us grow. It's how we manage it that will grow that muscle to deal with stress. So what's happening is because of looking at our world with all those family, future friends, manenos that are coming, we end up getting to a place where we are not developing the muscle to cope. But how do you develop that muscle? You look at stress at the beginning before it becomes too much. And the one thing that stress may be mistaken for, or a good part of stress, positive stress, is tension. Now, tension is that pull. You know, this is what my life looks like. This is what I would prefer. I'm not comfortable with what's going on. That's tension. But when you say I'm stressed, now you start introducing the negative, almost like it's not, you can't do anything about it. It introduces a helplessness somewhere there. But when we look at tension, when we look at it as tension, what is tension? It shows discomfort. It shows you're uncomfortable with the status quo. You're not happy with what's going on at home. You're not happy with your friendship. You're not happy with the subjects you're taking. Many people are like taking subjects that they don't even like because your parent told you that this particular one will earn you more money. Go into tech when what you want to do is design, right? Because it will make you more money. When you feel uncomfortable, push to seek solutions. That's how to leverage on tension. You feel uncomfortable, just push to seek solutions. What do some of these solutions look like? I think the first thing is to name your stressor. Name your stressor. I started with saying family has problems, and family is doing interesting things, which is causing us stress. But sometimes when we are surrounded with people whose families are going through stress, we can start looking for the stress in our own families. When my son was young, I think he was in about Form 2 or somewhere thereabouts, and he wanted something. He wanted something from us as a parents. And so he came and he asked me about it. I gave him an answer. He went, he asked the father about it. The father told him, I'll think about it. You know, African parents who tag team, the father usually knows that if you want to be right, just check with the mom. So the dad checked with me and then aligned the answer. And my son comes and asks me, why don't you and dad fight? I said, okay, we do, but why do you ask? And he says, because I can't play you. When you don't fight, I can't play you. Now, he is able, because of the relationship, to say that loud enough. One of the things I know for sure is that that's one of the things that goes on in young people's minds. Of, yes, my folks are fighting, I can get what I want. Because there's that space in the middle, right? And when they fight with each other, one will say no to spite the other. So we take advantage of them. So when you name your stressor, you will look and see, is it the family that's stressing me? Is it my friendships? Is it not getting what I would like in life? Whatever that might be. When you name it, you can tame it. When you name your stressor, the thing that's causing you stress, you can tame it. So family is not stress. Family is a stressor. Friends are not stress. They are stressors. Stress is what happens in our bodies as a result of encountering that stressor. So there's some of us who you will meet with your dad and you start sweating, right? For whatever reason that might be. You will meet with your mom and you close you close up. But when you meet with your friends, you're up and alive, and you'd rather be anywhere else but there. So stress is what your body is doing. The stressor is the person you're encountering. Same thing with friends. You're going to school every morning. You know you were bullied last week. You were bullied yesterday. School is the stressor. Your friends are the stressor. Stress is how you're feeling as a result. Stomach running, headaches, heaviness, you can't sleep. All those are symptoms that show you your body is responding to a particular stressor. So name the stressor in order to tame it. That's one of the best things you can do for yourself. Second thing you can do is know yourself. Some of us are don't cares. Whatever's clever, no problem. Some of us internalize. We analyze what's going on so much. Know who you are so that you know how to handle it. I was talking to some young people, and they were the parents are in the process, they're in a divorce process. And when I asked what's going on and how are you doing, all of them, all the children in the family reacted differently. And there's one boy who said, why do my parents think that I was married with them? It's their problem, not mine. There's going to be that person who's able to separate themselves from the chaos going on in the world, or in their world. And then there's going to be the one who says, what can I do to make their marriage work? But I need to remind you, you are not married to them. You cannot make your parents' marriage work. So when you name the stressor and you know who you are, then you know what you're capable of doing. I would invite you to actually look at what are your strengths. What are these things that you're great at? What are things that you enjoy doing? What else makes you happy? Because if you can find ways of doing the stuff that makes you happy, then you will cope a little bit better. Then the other thing you can do is change in bits. I know that many of us are dependent on our parents. But we need to start getting to the place where we are changing ourselves in bits. And when you change yourself, then you change how you respond to stress. You change how you perceive stress. When you look at it as tension, you're able to then look and say, okay, fine, so this is tension. I'm uncomfortable with what's going on. What can I do about it? And you do something about it. But change in bits. The importance of changing in bits is the one thing I know that cannot be completely overhauled. You know how you close for renovations, do an overhaul, and then check back? Is the brain. Because you have to keep using it every single day. So when you want to help yourself get mentally better, do it in bits. And then remember to celebrate the wins. Every time you do something, you've had a great day, celebrate. Whatever that might look like for you. There are very many ways in which you can celebrate those wins. So I'd like us to refer to Philippians. Philippians 4, 6-7. Philippians 4, 6-7. It talks about anxiety. And it's saying, do not be anxious. Let me just get it here. It says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. If we can pause right there. When it says, do not be anxious about anything, present your requests to God. What is your request for family? What is your request for friends? What is your request for your future? Present that with God. But how does it say you present it? With prayer and petition and with thanksgiving. The good thing about naming things and the process of taming them is that you will actually see some things that you're grateful for. That crappy family has some things going well. Those mean friends you have push you to do certain things. So there might be something good, what we call the silver lining, but not everything has a silver lining. So be very, very careful you don't gaslight yourself in the process. The world already gaslights us. Do not do it to yourself. So the process becomes, be clear what you're going to be grateful for, present those requests to God. Now, what happens is the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. What does this look like for us in a mental health space? You will be going through hell, but somehow you're coping. And you wonder, how am I doing this? And if somebody hears your story, they're thinking, wow, if I had folks like yours, if I had parents like yours, if I had friends like yours, if my brother was like yours, they don't even see how you're coping. But when you have presented your petition, you've presented your request to God, you can get peace that's crazy. But then now, how do you then get to the place where you choose what to focus on? That is in the next verse, Philippians 4:8. Now, Philippians 4:8 says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. So if your teacher called you stupid, is that true? If your friend has called you ugly, is that true? Many of the names we end up being called, many of the titles we are given are a lot of the time not true. But you have to look back at yourself and ask, what is true about me? When I was in high school, I used to do horribly in sciences. And I remember especially getting E's and D's and all that stuff in biology and chemistry. I was in a boarding school and so was forced to come back to school during holidays when everybody else is home to do chemistry, extra remedial classes. I still failed, by the way. So it didn't help. What they didn't understand is I'm not a scientist. But the system required me to actually go through with it. So I felt a bit dumb. And I started calling myself those particular questions and forgetting to look at the places where I was excelling. And I was great at art and design. I was also great at questioning. And therefore, the debating and everything else, I could have made a good lawyer in another lifetime if I had thought through my career well enough. However, when I got to the point when I could focus on what was true about me, I started doing well. And so fast forward, I actually was one of those people who refused to go to university and then went when I was much, much older. So by the time I was getting to uni, even my son had finished uni. And that's a story for another day. But one of the things we laughed about was I started doing well in sciences. And what we did was blame the teacher, blame age, and say you actually do get better as you grow older. But you don't necessarily get better. What you do is start coping better. Which brings me back to how do you look at your stress? In your world, if everything is exploding and is looking stressful, start looking at what's the tension. If I had looked at my subjects differently, if I had approached those sciences differently, I probably would have gotten a C-. I still would never have been an A because I wasn't an A student when it came to that. But it's accepting who I am. As opposed to calling myself stupid, is saying at what level can I play and win? And can I do hard things? Can I keep improving myself? Because then it ends up getting your focus to solving the problem. What is pure about you? What is right? What is lovely about you? What is admirable about you? When you get honest with yourself, you will cope a lot better. So why are we talking about this? If we look in the Bible at some characters, they're characters who had some of these things. We have people, a guy called King David. I don't think I've met a man in real life here who's as terrible as King David was. When I talk to young men, I ask, how many of you have killed the guy of a girl that you want? We kill them with words. We assassinate them with words. We assassinate them by bringing down their reputation. But we don't get to the extent that David got to, where we use our power to do that. But David was a depressed guy. And one of the things God loved about him, he would keep going back to God and asking why. He would question, he would reflect, he would introspect, he would name his stressor. He would look for ways of naming his stressor. Then there's a guy called Elijah. He achieved so much and then was so desperate, he went asking God to kill him. Just take my life. And what was he doing? Running away from some mama. We can get there. There's people who have gotten there before. There are women. Hannah wanted a kid but couldn't get one. Started making deals with God. The one thing that we see with all of these people is, yes, however low they went, they took their prayer requests to God. And that's the one place that I would like to ask you guys to get to as much as possible, if you can get there. So why are we talking about this today? We're saying that if you don't attend to this depression, you don't attend to the stress going on in your life, you don't acknowledge and celebrate the good things that are working, you're going to end up in a place that is a lot worse than you started off. Why do we talk about these in church? Because God is the best source of hope. He's bigger than your parents. He's bigger than your situation. He's bigger than anything that you would go through. And he can deal. Even when you feel you can't, he will be able to deal, right? So if I can just go over some of the things that we have said. We have said that stress will come. And stress comes in the form of family, which are our parents, our siblings, and our history, our grandparents, and things that happened in the past. Stress comes from friends, the rejection that we get from them, the comparison, when we are comparing ourselves with them, the loss of friends. Stress comes from our future, thinking about our future, worrying about our future. But when we look at all those things and consider them to be tension, then we can seek solutions. So I'm asking that as much as possible, name your stressor, know yourself, and then change in bits. Do things in bite sizes as much as you possibly can. So I'll leave you with the words of Philippians 4:8, because that's what I would like you to focus on. Brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Make that your homework every single day. I don't know how you start your day. I don't know how you end your day, but think about those things. And if you focus on them, you will have a step closer to living a mentally healthy life. Thank you. I would like to pray for us as we get into our small groups. Lord, we come before you, thanking you for the gift of life, thanking you that it is not by mistake that we are here. We are asking that you open our eyes not just to see the hell that we could be going through or the stuff that's going through in our world that might be difficult, but to also see the shiny bits of hope, the strands that we can reach to, the things that are working. Because not everything is bad. Lord, give us eyes to see what's good. Give us eyes, give us the courage, give us the will, give us the skills to pick what's good and work with it, for it to work for our good. Help us establish friendships that are going to be wholesome. Help us be friends who are going to be wholesome, who are going to be able to focus on what's right and true about what's going on in our lives. Heal our families, oh Lord. Deal with the issues going on in our families as you would, so that we don't have to continue carrying the stress of dealing with what's going on. Help us be able to seek help and not worry about how things are going to turn out, because you got us. Help us to remember that you are bigger than anything that we will be facing, oh Lord. And as we go through the day, as we continue with the rest of the service, oh Lord, we ask that you just help us, guide us to open up and seek that help when we need the help. Even seek it when we don't know how to go about it. So Lord, take over our minds, take over our hearts, take over our lives, and do what only you can do. Give us peace that surpasses understanding. Give us peace that will surpass all human understanding. Let people look at us and ask, what happened? How are you coping? And we can then point at God. I ask that you bless each and every one of us who are here today. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen.
So let's give a round of applause for Pastor. So what we're going to do now, we're going to break into our small groups. So 14-year-olds, okay, so we can stand up and go to our small groups.
You in my way. You cross that line. It ain't your day. I lost my mind. Come on. I guess I'm just a misfit, huh? Yeah. Should I come in right now? No? Should I come in right now? Yeah. Hey, listen. Real skinny. Loud colored tinnies. Body marked up like graffiti. I don't push a Maserati, Beamer, Benz, or Bentley. And yeah, I wrote a foreign. And this I'm looking spiffy. Hey, go ahead and doubt us. That's what you know about us. And we ain't gotta follow, then we take another route. No, we ain't blowing trees, bro. Open up my window. I see you popping tags, but you know that's why your end's low. I tried to tell them we was coming, gone, let us in. Why they hating like we all a bunch of hooligans? No gimmicks, spirit in my lyrics. Know when people hear it, they gon' love it, they gon' fear it. And it ain't how we flow, cause when we show up at our show, they say we going so hard in the paint, they can't wait for some more. But some others say we preachy, some closed-minded geechies. Like we ain't heard of Marx like a Nietzsche. Believe me. Like they don't know about us, they don't know about us. Like they don't know about us, they don't know. Oh, they don't know. They think we dumb, diddy dumb. But they gon' know about us. They gon' know about us. Hey, they gon' know about us. They gon' know about us. Oh, they gon' know about us. They gon' know about us. Oh, they gon' know about us. They gon' know about us. 622 plus, gon' add it up. Hey, that's a big problem. Call it calculus. Math don't subtract, but content like I had enough. Long hair don't care some more, and plus I'm tatted up. I know this blow your mind, and I ain't blowing pine. Not talking women looking skimpy every other line. Yeah, I got a dime. How about to make a mine? Life in Christ got me finished like across the line. With the way that you telling me to do it, sell out to sell out. Nah, man, it's so foolish. Done trying to beat you, it don't fit, misfit. I don't trip, everybody hate Chris. They saying get with this, just like a membership. They talking slick that this is it, but it's just gibberish. I say I'm interested, they say you different. How you gon' know even if you don't let us in? They don't know about us, they don't know about us. They don't know about us, they don't know. Oh, they don't know. They think we dumb, diddy dumb. But they gon' know about us. They gon' know about us. Hey, they gon' know about us. They gon' know about us. Oh, they gon' know about us. They gon' know about us. Oh, they gon' know about us. They gon' know about us. So we finna go. Dumb on them like I could be. Dumb on them, yeah, that's cool with me. They don't know about us. They don't Sitting with the ones that I'll forever love. We're waiting on a flash